Some time today talking about I time, breath cycle time, and IE ratio. These are all very important components when it comes to mechanical ventilation and managing a ventilator, and we should be looking at these with every vent check before we put a patient on a new setting, whatever it may be. These are important. So I'm going to go through and talk about each individually, and then we'll talk about their effects on ventilation. I time is the duration of inhalation in a single breath. This is set directly in pressure modes or deprived from flow and volume in volume control modes. It also controls how long the lungs are inflated before the exhalation process begins. Typically, if your I time is too short, you're going to have oxygenation issues, and if it's too long, you're going to have retention. Breath cycle time is the total time for inhalation and exhalation for one breath. It determines how much time you have to split between inspiration and expiration. If you want an equation, you can do 60 divided by your set respiratory rate, and that will give you seconds. So let's say 60 divided by 20 equals 3. For one single breath, you're going to have 3 seconds for inhalation and exhalation. Whereas if you're on a higher rate, you're going to have a shorter total time for each breath. So we'll get into what we need to be looking at to ensure the patient is having a adequate inhalation and exhalation process. IE ratio is telling us our inspiratory time to our expiratory time. A normal is a 1-to-2 ratio. Obstructive, you may see like a 1-to-3, even maybe a 1-to-5. ARDS and oxygenation type issues, you might even see an inverse ratio or like a 1-to-1, ensuring the balance between oxygenation and ventilation. Correlate ventilation with your E time, because if you don't have enough time to exhale, your CO2 is going to go up. You're going to start auto trapping. So many effects that can be happening if you're not allowed to exhale. So we need to be watching these. If these are set correctly, our patient is not going to ventilate great and oxygenate great. Job is much more important than being told to go up on a respiratory rate, let's say from 25 to 30. You can't just do that. You need to be looking at these things, because if you don't look at them, your patient is either going to get their whole inhalation process or their whole exhalation process, or both. And most of the time, when this starts to become problematic, your patient is already sick enough. So you going in and putting them on a high rate without looking at your I time and adjusting it, or looking to see if your loops are closing, you're hurting them more. Please make sure we're looking at these. So if it's too long, you're going to have an incomplete exhalation on your flow waveform. And this is going to cause auto peeping. This is going to cause your CO2 to rise, to make your patient look terrible. We need to look at what your I time is set as in general, but if you're on a high rate, do not have your patient on an I time of 1. With breath cycle time, you'll notice seeing breath stacking, incomplete exhalations. You can also see auto peep on your waveforms if your patient is auto peeping. We don't want our patients uncomfortable on the ventilator. And in some cases, that's not an option. There might be some discomfort, but there are so many things that you can be setting on your vent to have your patient more comfortable and have them sync with the vent, even on your high settings. We just have to be aware of them. This up, IE ratio, breath cycle time, and I time are important to ensure oxygenation and ventilation. Your patients do need more I time, and that's okay. Obviously, we've talked about it, but you need to make sure that they are exhaling. And if they're not, is this benefiting them better than what they were doing? Because if not, then we need to change something. You need to play with the vent. You need to play with something to fix the problems that they are having. Are very important settings that I feel like are forgotten about a lot, and that maybe aren't touched on as much clinically once you're out of school. But we don't just go in and adjust these settings. You need to make sure that your patient has the time to exhale, inhale, so that we don't cause further damage. Aware of this, and if you have questions or you feel like you're on a high rate, someone around you, see what they would do. That always makes me feel better if I'm ever in a situation where I'm like, this is questionable, but the patient's very sick. I'm just going to get a second opinion to see what someone else says. Need more ventilator help, need to learn specific things with ventilators. I have a lot of amazing study tools linked in my bio. I also have things on pharmacology, the CSE, the TMC, so make sure you go and click on that link. My products have been selling like crazy. I'm so happy that they're useful to people and that they're helping people get through mechanical ventilation or whatever else their needs are calling for.